was this new growth here recently? What do you?
This looks like pretty new growth to me.
Right.
Not all of our tomatoes are doing this. As we walk down, you'll see some of the plants have crashed, particularly some of the varieties of heirlooms do well. These are hybrids, and I think despite all this, whatever this is, it's early blight or whatever, there's still a fair number of tomatoes on it, which
Well, there's plenty of tomatoes that haven't turned yet, but there's also green growth and flowers.
That's kind of unusual for us to have that.
So this
has been drenched several times, at least 3 times. This is where I use the we call it a mix ripe. There's another name.
It's an injector.
Dosimatic. It's an injector that we've been putting through the drip system. You know, a mix of foundation and C crop, phosphorus, potassium, and phytostim. I think went in there too. And so we've done that at least three times during the growing season.
Right.
As well as the soil drench before we planted them.
Right.
Do you think it's made a difference, Ira?
I do, actually. This has been our biggest harvest ever. I mean, a lot of people are having good tomato crops this year with the heat, but it's been unusual.
For the same acreage, about a better production,
Better
you think? Production,
more production for plants.
You said you picked 5,000 pounds of tomatoes out of here?
We picked 2,700 pounds a week for 3 weeks in a row.
Out of here?
Out of this patch. And then you'll see there's where that other patch over there is a second succession. That's kicked in last week. But we've got well over 5,000, well over probably 7,000 or 8,000 out of this patch here.
And I see a lot of tomatoes left.
There's a lot left.
I mean, most people would be happy to have this many tomatoes in their plants ever. Period. End of story.
We've never had. We were having 900-pound days. You know, where we would pick 900 pounds of tomatoes out of here.
So again, I would say your biggest issue is going to be, market. Do you have market for these? Do you, but
not enough.
You don't have enough market.
Well, our members were getting on some days, 12, 15 pounds each. And then we were selling it at our farmers market, but we only sell a few hundred pounds up there, and then we set up a little stand on our road.
Right.
So we didn't get any tomatoes last year or the year before because of that herbicide thing. So I felt like we were making up for past time. I didn't feel too bad about it.
3 years worth every week.
Yeah, I didn't feel too bad.
But I guess my point here is, again, I think your issue is more with your customer base. Do you actually want to have squash? Then can you have squash? Do you actually want to keep these tomatoes going, or
Yes, I'd like to.
I think it's. Generally most people's tomatoes kick out, right? Yeah. Between August 1st and September 15th, there's tomatoes, and then they're gone for 10 and a half months.
You're setting up to have a seller's market here. If you have tomatoes after everybody else's.
After everyone else, because we don't go for the first early tomatoes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it would be nice to have a late tomato. So I think that we'd have a niche.
So I'm not sure if people want to look at this, but this is totally. Maybe it's not ideal growth, but it's totally healthy, and there's flowers, there's fruit, young fruit setting. They're not stopping, right? But they are pulling a lot, and so this is a situation where that conductivity monitoring. They've obviously been suffering because look at all the. They've been sacrificing their life to keep going, so they're definitely not. Ideally, you would want to see green leaves all the way up. You wouldn't want to see disease at all, and that's totally plausible. But they haven't been maintained at optimal levels of nutrition. So they're somewhere in that middle zone, where there's no reason to give up on them, but they definitely have been suffering, and so supplemental nutrition would be the solution for keeping them going.
Do you have anybody who has more green than not? Do you have any of the people you're working with that
That's what mine look like.
Really?
I don't have any. I've got 2 or 3 spots where I've got a couple leaves that are a little bit yellow.
Are yours outdoor or in a hoop?
They're in a hoop house.
I'm wondering whether indoor hoop house production protects them a little bit from extremes and from some diseases.
I've just been giving, that's the only ones I've actually been giving a proper treatment to. The ones outside they're green down to about here. And there's a little, they're definitely brown at the bottom, but not much.
But sometimes you have splash up from the bottom, where the soil splashes up.
Right.
And
Right.
that-
No, but this kind of dieback is not splash up. This is
yeah.
they're sucking their life force out to fill their fruit.
Dan, I'm sorry, any idea by looking at them what they're lacking nutritionally?
I'm honestly not that sophisticated. I do think, I mean, all these blights and things that show up on, we basically, our rule of thumb is for fungal diseases, it's calcium or potassium, and for insect diseases, it's probably, it's phosphorus or sulfur, and sometimes nitrogen.
Say that again?
For diseases, it's generally potassium or calcium, and for insects, it's generally phosphorus or sulfur, and sometimes nitrogen. But in fruit crops, well, it's oftentimes it's both. But if you've been pulling a lot of fruit, you generally pull the potassium. You just pull it all out. Remember, because we're looking at 3 to 5% potassium and 70% calcium. Remember the mineral levels? And a lot of people's soil tests came back with very low potassium levels, and we recommended additional potassium. And you added a good amount of potassium this year.
Yeah.
And you've been getting some pretty good yields.
Yeah.
And I think potassium is the limiting factor that wants to be continuously added. It just needs to be maintained. Because that's what happens when you fill fruit and fill fruit and fill fruit, you keep pulling it, and the plants will keep going until they run out of something. That my grandmother was strong and mind and till she was 95, or I don't know how old she was when she died, but like 7. Like what is it about some people that they're able to hold it all together, and some people aren't? And I mean I really. Not knowing anybody's personal histories or wanted to say anything, but like, I think that our ability, we're basically just holding it together, and on some deeper level or more essential level, it is an energetic thing. But as the foundational minerals start to become deficient, that is a hole in the frequency. I mean, I don't know if we can jump back and forth between the metaphors if it works for people, but. You're basically pulling and pulling, and then when something runs out, it's dissonance. It's a hole in the cord, and the whole thing starts to fall apart. And so as long as we keep sufficiency, if you build sufficiency and maintain it, you should be able to have significant yields, which is part of the rationale, the economics rationale for this whole prospect, is that if we can actually get better yields by doing the right thing, then you get a better profitability, which incentivizes people to do it. So